Hello and welcome to this industry analysis video for the Strategic Case Study exam. In this industry analysis video, we're going to be going through our pre-seen company for the November 2022 and February 2023 exam sitting, which is Hottayr. Now, as for some very quick admin or, itinerary to go through for this video, why are we looking through this industry pack? Well, the whole point of the industry pack is to give you some sort of business awareness of, awareness of the business environment rather, for such a company like Hottayr. The reason being is that examiners expect you to have excellent knowledge of the pre-seen industry, and they want you to demonstrate this knowledge in the exam. So if you are able to apply real-world examples to your answers, it not only uplifts your answer, but it justifies the arguments you're making. If you think about it, if you have precedent, real-world precedent for why a certain action might result in a specific outcome, then it automatically makes your answer more believable, much more relatable to your boss. Because remember, you are role-playing a senior financial manager at Hottayr. So given that, by having industry examples on hand, it can help lift up your answer, give you more marks. And we can see here, you are the senior financial manager, or senior manager in the finance function at Hottayr. So because you have this sort of strategic oversight, it's important that you are able to justify your answers when it comes to making strategic decisions. Now, while you are expected to provide logical business advice as well, and as I said before, it is one of the key ways of maximizing your marks in the SCS exam, the point of this industry pack is to help condense all the industry information to the stuff that we feel is the most relevant to your revision. Now, it doesn't mean that every little bit of information in this pack is going to be relevant to an answer you give or any answer you give in the exam. Absolutely not. Okay, the whole point of an industry analysis is to give you context, and there's going to be elements of that which we need to discuss and explain, because without it, subsequent topics don't make sense. We need to know who the customers are. We need to know who the stakeholders are. It may not necessarily be relevant right there and then in the exam, but it helps contextualize everything and make the pre-seen much more relatable. If anything, it's also a bit of pre-seen revision, because it helps you see how the pre-seen was actually created by CIMA in the first place. Because CIMA based these on real-world industries, real-world companies. But we also do provide industry examples, which we'll be going through a few at the end, so that you can see some of the ways in which some of the topics or scenarios, case studies, that you may be able to apply in different exam scenarios. The importance is being able to adapt the basic information into something you can use. So without further ado, let's actually start with Chapter 2, which is on the heating and plumbing and heating industry. So that's the broad industry we're dealing with here now. Plumbing and heating could be heating systems market, could be the heating, ventilation and air conditioning market or industry as well. They all sort of encompass the same sort of things. The involvement of some sort of plumbing system that circulates hot or cool air around a building, and because of the company we're dealing with, Hottayr, the primary focus is going to be on heating apparatuses rather than air conditioning, but there is a bit of crossover. I'm getting ahead of myself though. Let's start with the history, very basic. Okay, so this is one of those areas which, at the end of the day, the history, you're not going to be citing the fact that fires were started centuries and centuries, millennia ago in your exam. But again, provides you with just, once again, context. Heating has been an important part of human culture and history for an incredibly long time. And as a result of that long history, of course, a market developed around it, didn't it? New ways of heating buildings, innovations in that. We can see that the ancient Greeks developed underfloor heating systems, which we still use to this day. And throughout the Middle Ages, what we got then was the introduction of fireplaces, so central heating systems, probably the first kinds of central heating systems that could be reused and over again in these sorts of buildings for much more households. Now, of course, Middle Ages, but you get the idea. And then, of course, we had the introduction of stoves, so now we could concentrate the fire into a kitchen appliance that we could use, something that we could use to make our food. And of course, when it came to the industrial era, this is when we started to see much more of a market push for these kinds of products. Things where like coal became popular alternative to wood, so fuels were much more longer lasting. And of course, into the 20th and 21st century, what we see now is a wide proliferation of central heating systems throughout the world, really. And now we're getting into the areas of using solar technology as our energy source. So moving away from fossil fuels for these heating systems, and I'm moving on to sustainable fuels. And of course, there's the innovations in efficiency to make the fossil fuels much more efficient, so they're not pumping out as many greenhouse gases, while also trying to get the most energy out of them. These are all developments in the industry and things that our precinct company will need to be actively working towards, because in the long run, at least, sustainable fuels are going to be more than likely the thing that will stick into the future. So what do we have? Hottayr was established in 1952 in Norland, so it's a relatively old business. Some heating companies are a lot older, for example, Hitachi and I think Lennox is the name. I've forgotten that one. But basically, some companies can be over a century old. Hottayr, relative to those, is obviously a bit younger, but it's still quite an old company. It's had time to build up its manufacturing base. And what Hottayr did in the 1970s was not only focus on the domestic market, because it was a bit slow in Norland, but they also expanded internationally. So Hottayr was able to benefit from being early entrants to the Norland market, as well as obviously being able to export their products overseas as well. Now, they released their first heat pump in 1997, and this would have been relatively quite late. Heat pumps were developed back in the 1940s, so it's quite a bit of distance between one and the other. But the problem is that there was limited demand for these heat pumps when Hottayr released it, so it appears that the trend for heat pumps was late to arrive in Norland, which Hottayr then capitalised on when the time was appropriate. Okay, so we moved past the history now. We're at the products, the things that they do sell. Or not just Hottayr, but also other companies in this industry. Well, of course, there are also the typical heating and plumbing services that are required. So naturally, these systems do need to be installed by professionals. And so plumbers and engineers are required not only for the manufacture, but also for the installation and maintenance of these products. And the installation and maintenance becomes very important when we get to the legal side of this industry. As for domestic heating products, so for your information, this is an umbrella term, and it's used to describe any system that is used to heat a building. So it could be from a fireplace all the way up to an advanced heating system that heats floors or uses solar energy as a means of heating water or the household rooms. And on that, there are two types, central heating and room heating. So I think it's quite clear what one does over the other. Central heating basically addresses the whole building, okay? Whereas room-based heating are ones that try to heat a specific room, which of course is energy efficient, because if there's only one room in use out of 5 in a building, then you really only want to heat the one room that's in use and not all the other 5. As for the specific devices, the equipment, we of course have boilers, and there are many different types of boilers to be aware of. First is the use of gas and oil boilers. These, as you would expect, use fossil fuels as the primary energy source for creating heat. But much more recently, compared to them at least, we now have electricity-based water heaters. So instead of using gas as the energy source, it uses the electricity that is brought into the household as a means of generating heat. Of course, the electricity may still be produced using fossil fuels, but the electricity itself is what is used to create heat in the central heating system rather than the fossil fuels itself. And just to highlight these lines here that I just mentioned, so we can see here that gas and oil heaters are becoming, boilers are becoming less popular. And the problem with oil-based boilers is that they need to be refilled by a gas delivery company, which of course, like you can imagine, in this day and age is becoming less and less common. Now, an innovation is the use of the hydrogen boiler as a domestic heating system. And the benefit of hydrogen is that, generally speaking, it is, at least it's completely environmentally friendly because it's just hydrogen that is being used as the energy source. The problem with it is it's quite expensive to produce hydrogen that can be used as an energy source. It's also quite volatile. But provided we can get around these issues, because gas is quite volatile when you think about it at the end of the day, gas can create problems when it's not properly secured. Manufacturers are planning to launch hydrogen boilers in 2025. So this could be something in the near future. As for furnaces, these are most popular in central heating in North America. So these are similar to boilers, but instead of using water, they use electricity electricity, natural gas, or oil to heat the air. And as for heat pumps, this is the difference between boilers and furnaces now. So what heat pumps do is that it uses the air from the environment, either from the ground or from the air outside a building, as a means of circulating and capturing heat. So you can see they use there are two types. There's an air source and a ground source, and whichever source is used, it captures heat and then pumps it around a building. Now, the problem with these kinds of pumps is that, of course, it relies on the temperature of the air itself to a degree. And one of the major disadvantages is that they do not generate a lot of heat compared to boilers and furnaces, which, of course, use an external source of energy as a means of generating heat in the first place, whereas this is capturing heat that already exists in the air. But the benefit of heat pumps is that if they're used in the correct environment, then they can be much more environmentally friendly. They only use electricity to function, and they can double up as air conditioners during hot weather, dragging in cool air as opposed to hot air to cool down a building. Then the one that is also gaining in popularity is called solar panels. As you'd expect, solar panels can not only generate electricity, but the heat that is absorbed by the solar panels can also be used to heat up water system, although the plumbing in the household or in the building, and that then is circulated around the building in the pipes to pass heat around. So we use solar photovoltaic panels, and these use sunlight to generate electricity, which can then be used to power a heating system. Now, of course, the obvious advantage is they don't work at night. You need a battery if you want to store energy over longer periods of time, which can be expensive. There also may not be, some houses may not be suitable given their location, geographic location. And of course, they are quite expensive, although the cost of them is going down. District heating then is where communal central heating is used. So instead of each building have its own heating source, it is provided by a centralized location. So this is where some sort of centralized body or building is the one responsible for generating heat and then passing it around to other buildings. So obviously the environmental impact of district heating depends on the fuel that's used, as you would expect. Now, one example is Denmark. So 64% of households were connected to a district heating network in 2017. However, in its neighbour, the Netherlands, only 5% of households were connected to district heating networks in 2020. So you can see there's a wide variety of different cultural acceptability when it comes to this kind of central heating. Denmark is quite popular, Netherlands, not so much. So skipping ahead a bit, if this was to apply to the precinct, if Hottayr were to somehow provide districts with heating systems, then it would need to look at whether these district heating systems are in fact even popular in the country that it's hoping to sell them to. Because if they're not, then it might be seen as a bit of a lost cause unless they can really market its usage. But again, that's easier said than done. And then what we're going to do now is go through some industry examples. So there's 25 here in this pack. I'm only going to go through 3, but the point of me going through these 3 is to demonstrate how you can use these examples and insert them into exam answers. So starting with number 1, okay, hydrogen could nearly double the cost of heating a home compared with gas. So what we're told here is that between now and 2050, the UK is legally bound to reach net zero greenhouse gases emissions. Using hydrogen would add about 70% to home energy bills compared with using gas, according to a report. So basically, we've got this commitment in the UK to reach net zero greenhouse gases, but the alternatives for this kind of production would actually raise costs to such a level that it might not even be that sustainable. So how can we insert this into an exam paragraph? So where you might get this question in SCS is in, say, when you're performing a strategic evaluation or an evaluation of a strategy for Hottayr. So, for example, we're told that Hottayr's vision is to lead a move towards a zero carbon world, and hydrogen is likely to play a key part in Norland's decarbonisation pathway. However, using hydrogen would add 70% to home energy bills, so that's what we're doing. We're pulling the information from our example into our answer. We're not even mentioning the UK here. We're just sort of citing that the UK has identified a 70% increase in energy bills if we were to use hydrogen-based fuels for heating. And so we can drag that in, we can just drop it in there, and that immediately shows some sort of industry knowledge to the examiner. And so we say it'll add to the energy bills with using gas, according to a report commissioned by renewable energy charity MCS Foundation. So whilst our commitment to net zero is vital, we must ensure that alternative zero emission alternatives are affordable for customers. So that's just one way in which you can use an example. Let's take a look at another.
So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it, and more importantly, you have found it useful. I'd like to just take a moment to tell you about some of the various different case study products that we produce here at Astranti and how they will help you to pass, minimize your study time, and represent good value for money. And all of these products are included on our case study course, but you can also purchase these products individually. And we have a range of different products, starting with our exam technique series. In this series of videos, and indeed a study text, we look through the approach to the case study exam, how best to approach it, how to plan your answers effectively, how to turn those plans into answers that are going to secure you the passing mark. We also have a video series looking at the theory revision, taking the key topics from the E3, P3 and F3 syllabus, looking at what those mean for the strategic case study as well, and also just giving you the chance to refresh your knowledge, particularly if it had been a while since you had looked at your strategic objective test papers. We then have the pre-scene analysis, detailing look at the pre-scene, looking through the pre-scene itself, but also looking at the strategic analysis, how the different models within the strategic syllabus apply to the pre-scene, and our top 10 most likely unseen issues. We also have an industry analysis document, which looks at the industry, details the industry, details the history of the industry, some of the key issues facing the industry, and major companies within that industry in the real world. It also has a series of important industry examples that you can use in your answers. We then have a series of mock exams that come with mock debrief videos looking at how you would answer this particular exam if you wanted that as your feedback. But we do have a marking and feedback option as well, which allows you to get your script marked, your mock exam marked by a trained marker that has experience marking both mock and real CIMA exams and providing a detailed feedback for you to improve and build upon your knowledge. We also have question packs that will give you lots of opportunity to write additional answers outside of the mock exams for very specific questions. So we've got lots of very, very specific broken down questions if you are struggling with a particular topic, with a particular competence, etc., that you can answer specific questions based on those to really improve your knowledge. And it's also just additional question writing practice. And we also have a series of masterclasses as well. These are live events where you will learn more about planning your answers, more about how to approach the exam, and also there'll be lots of very important hints and revision tips and other tips that will help you to pass this exam. And if you are purchasing all of these on the course, we also can offer what we call a double guarantee, and that is a 14-day money-back guarantee. So if you purchase the course and you're not satisfied, you can claim a full refund within 14 days. And we also have our pass guarantee. And this is where, as long as you have demonstrated that you have fulfilled the course requirements, such as watching all the videos, submitting all your mock exams, attending the master classes, and if you still do not pass the exam, we will give you another course for free as part of our pass guarantee. So thanks for watching. If you do have any other questions about the Astranti case study courses, please feel free to contact us and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you just have any general questions, then by all means email us and visit our website. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you on another video soon.